Private equity and big tech are ruining your favorite brands, and here's how. I think that we're really at the frontier of algorithmic fashion. Brands can just create an algorithm and spit out fashion slop.
Amy Odell just named the thing you see every time you open a shopping app. Clothes shaped by algorithms instead of creative vision.
I think what's happening in fashion is not all that dissimilar to the fears that people have around literature or film or the arts in general when it comes to AI. People think that AI can't really create anything new or anything really creative because it only draws on what has come before. I mean, it might be, too, that we stop caring. We accept that the algorithm is going to design a lot of our clothing and that it's going to bubble up from trending topics on TikTok. But I don't think we're there yet. Fashion wasn't always driven by data. It used to be driven by creative talent.
Fashion's made by people. All kinds of different people.
Halston was one of the iconic designers of the 1970s, and he would famously go to Studio 54, party with celebrities until the wee hours of the morning, and then roll into work to design his clothes in the middle of the day. And you can see that kind of reflected in his very 1970s glamour that he's famous for. Karl Lagerfeld and Yves Saint Laurent. Yves Saint Laurent saw fashion really as a form of art.
D'abord, puisque c'est une de mes nombreuses collections maintenant.
La 20e, non?
Presque, oui.
And Karl Lagerfeld was very averse to that.
It's not a bad thing to follow fashion because fashion is the expression of our times. It is always better to go ahead with your time than stay back.
They also had really different philosophies about what fashion should be and what clothes should be.
La mode n'était pas seulement faite pour embellir les femmes, mais aussi pour les rassurer, leur donner confiance.
No. Dressmaking is dressmaking. Philosophy is philosophy, but you don't have to mix it.
I can understand there being an anxiety in the culture about losing taste.
Everything is just so boring.
We started to see in the 80s like a high-low mix, and I would say Anna Wintour's first Vogue cover is emblematic of that, where she had a model on the cover wearing a bejeweled Christian Lacroix black top and Guess jeans.
It would declare that it was a different time at American Vogue, that fashion was changing.
Around 2000, we saw private equity companies start to invest more in the fashion industry. When you have private equity and big tech getting involved in fashion, corners are more likely to get cut.
That hurts workers across the entire textile supply chain.
The way they operate is they invest in things or they acquire things with the goal of flipping them or selling them in 3 to 5 years. This is not just fashion brands, but all kinds of companies, healthcare, veterinary care, etc.
A deal between two seemingly incompatible clothing brands.
One example of that would be Everlane.
Everlane was founded on conscious consumption, sustainability.
Everlane came around in the 2000s, and they promised great basics, like the kind that I think a lot of millennials like me would wear to work, could kind of go from day to night, and at pretty good prices. Their whole promise was radical transparency.
So we've walked in a factory before where some of the best brands are producing, and we said, we can't work with you.
They would tell us how they were making their clothes. That worked for a period of time, and then they pivoted. They took investment from L. Catterton. They had a leadership shuffle, and then they were $90 million in debt when Shein bought them.
Shein is often called the largest polluter in the industry.
I think it's going to be really hard for Everlane to sell clothes on the promise of sustainability or radical transparency when Shein's supply chain is pretty opaque.
Shein really represents not just fast fashion, but hyper fast fashion.
There have been allegations of forced labor. They themselves have found incidents of child labor.
We've seen this trend sort of accelerating over these last 40 years of fashion corporatizing and cutting creative talent, cutting costs.
Shimu, don't worry about it.
That kind of created a vacuum for AI to come in and replace creative talent with algorithms.
If it goes viral, the software instantly triggers a massive restock across 50 different workshops.
The clothing brand Addicted, which targets teen girls,
I did a lot of shopping on Addicted for back to school.
Primarily comes up with their assortment by algorithmic inputs. So what's trending on social media? What are people searching for? What did Hailey Bieber wear this month? Their CEO told the Wall Street Journal that they are more of an algorithm-based company than a design-based company. They spit out hundreds of styles made cheaply in China, and they can refresh the next month. Now you can make these clothes really, really fast. You can make them really, really cheap.
Honestly, a lot of these things, if you put them in hot water in the washing machine, would they just like melt?
This shirt, plastic. This shirt, plastic.
There's a real sameness to fashion now. I think that it's harder today than ever before to look at a piece of clothing or to even look at a runway look and to say, you know, I know exactly what brand that is.
Why does it feel like we're all dressing the same? Why does it feel like brands are just producing the same stuff?
There's always a craving for things that allow us to tell the world something about ourselves without us even speaking. And fashion is one example of that. The books we like to read are another example of that. The music we like to listen to is yet another example. In a landscape that's drowning in fashion slop, how do we shop intentionally?
Buy less, choose well, make it last.
There's a lot of reasons to care about this aside from finding clothes that you feel reflect your personal style. There's not only a high carbon impact and environmental impact, there's also a human impact. Many ultra-fast fashion clothes are being made in inhumane sweatshop conditions. And even at the highest echelons of fashion, we see authorities are constantly looking into factories that make clothes for some of the most expensive brands.
Let's talk about the $5,000 luxury jacket and the $5 an hour workers who make them.
Individual consumers cannot change the way brands are financed by private equity and the profits that those companies can make. The best thing to do as a consumer, if you're concerned about your environmental impact, just buy things that you're going to wear again and again and again. Keep it in rotation. Don't throw it out. Wear it as much as you can before you need to replace it.